Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Nimisha Jadon from School of Studies Environmental Chemistry, Jivaji University, Gwalior. Today we are going to discuss about the module redox titration under the paper of Fundamentals of Analytical Chemistry. The learning objective of this module including the introduction of oxidation reduction equilibria, oxidation reduction titration, the various types of titration curves, its theoretical concepts and the applications. The chemical reactions which involves oxidation reductions are more widely used in titrimetric analysis than acid-base complex formation or the precipitation reactions. Oxidation is defined as the loss of one or more electrons by an atom, molecules or ions, while reduction is electron gain. The term electron transfer reaction is sometimes used for redox reactions. The ions of many elements exist in different oxidation states, resulting in the possibility of a very large number of oxidation reduction, or we can say the redox reactions. Many of these reactions satisfy the requirements for use in titrimetric analysis and application are numerous. A galvanic cell is one in which the chemical reactions occur spontaneously, releasing electrical energy which is available for performing useful work. The redox equilibria are conveniently treated in terms of the electromotive force of galvanic cells. The electromotive force or EMF is measured in units of volt and is referred to as the voltage or the potential of the cell. The 1 volt is the EMF required to impart 1 joule of energy to an electric charge of 1 coulomb, that is denoted by the C. So 1 volt is equal to 1 joule by coulomb. Now we discuss here the single electrode potential. Suppose we place a strip of a metal, say zinc, in contact with the solution containing zinc ion. In general, the activities of zinc ion in the metal and the solution phases will be different, providing a driving force for the loss or the gain of zinc ion by the metal strip. Suppose atoms of zinc enter the solution as indicated in the figure. The electrons are left on the metal surface and the solution acquires a positive charge. The zinc ions also tend to leave the solution, depositing as atoms on the metal strips, and eventually equilibrium is established. This is the figure of single electrode potential. At this point, a charge separation has been developed and an electrostatic force or the difference in potential has been set up at the interface of the solid and liquid phases. The equilibrium process we have described may be written as zinc ion plus 2 electron is in equilibrium with zinc metal. The potential established at the metal solution interface is the measure of the tendency of zinc-zinc ion couple to lose electrons and is referred to as a single electrode potential. If metal had been a less active one that zinc, say copper, the process would not have proceeded so far to the left as in the zinc case. The single electrode potential of the copper-copper ion couple would be different, that is copper ion plus 2 electron is in equilibrium with copper metal. A single electrode potential between a metal and its ions has never been measured absolutely. In order to determine the potential difference between 2 points, we normally employ some kind of voltmeter, and this requires wires connecting the 2 points with the metal. If we attempt to measure the potential difference between the strip of zinc and the solution by attaching one of the meter leads to the metal and inserting the other one into the solution. A potential difference will be established between the meter lead and the solution, and we shall be unable to correct for its contribution to the measured voltage. The single electrode potential between the zinc metal and the solution then cannot be measured. It used to be stated that single electrode potentials were unmeasurable in principle, but a hypothetical experiment has been proposed which theoretically would enable one to calculate a single electrode potential from measurements of the radiation emitted by the oscillating charges if the electrode were caused to vibrate. Now we discuss here about the galvanic cell. To obtain a useful system upon which a meaningful measurements can be performed, we must combine two single electrodes to form a cell. An example is shown in the figure where the two half cells mentioned in the preceding section have been paired. Wires from the metal strips lead to an ammeter or the voltmeter. The circuit is completed by connecting the two solutions a, with a so-called salt bridge. This may be an inverted U-tube containing a solution of a salt such as potassium chloride with an agar plug at endpoint. This is the picture of a galvanic cell which are containing, the one section is containing the zinc metal and the solution of zinc ion, and the second one compartment containing the copper metal ion and the solution of copper ions, and these two are connected with the salt bridge, and the ammeter is connected at the top of this bridge so that it can identify the flow of electrons. Now there is more than a hypothetical tendency for electron transfer to occur. The excess electrons remaining on the zinc electrode when the zinc ions enter the solution find a place to go. They can travel through the external wiring to the copper electrode where they can be consumed in the reduction of the copper ion. The flow of electrons through the wire is of course an electric current that can be measured with the ammeter. The two solutions must remain electrically neutral, and here the salt bridge comes into play, completing the electrical circuit inside the cell. Chloride ions diffuse into the electrode on the left, that is zinc, and the potassium ion into one of the right, that is copper. A current flow through the whole system carried by the electrons in the metallic conductors and by ionic migration through the solution. This two electrode system is an electrochemical cell and is an example of a galvanic cell. Now we discuss here about the schematic representation of the galvanic cell with the help of the example of zinc and copper galvanic cell. This is the schematic representation of the zinc copper galvanic cell, that is zinc metal is in equilibrium with zinc ions of 1 molar here, and the copper ions again in equilibrium with the copper metal, and in between these two metals there is a phase boundary of zinc ion as well as the copper ion, which forms the double layer in between the positive or the negative electrode. A vertical line indicates a phase boundary across which we suppose a potential exists. A double line indicates a salt bridge used to make electrical contact between the two solutions. Presumably, there is a liquid junction potential at each end of the salt bridge, that is depicted by the EJ1 and EJ2, but these are minimized by using potassium chloride as the electrolyte. When we place a voltage measuring device between the zinc and copper strips, we can measure the potential of the galvanic cell.
the difference between the single electrode potentials of the two metal electrodes. The subtraction is normally made left from the right. E cell is equal to ER minus E1. The potential of each single electrode and hence of the cell depends upon the concentrations or the activities of zinc and copper ions. It is customary to define standard electrode potentials which are measured with the reacting species in standard states. Here, since both the electrolytes are in their standard states like in 1 molar, the expression would be written as the superscript 0 is used to indicate that the reactants are in their standard state, that is E naught cell is equal to E naught R minus E naught I.
Now we discuss here about the titration curves. The titration of iron 2 plus with the cerium 4 ions is explained here. The one example will be the titration of iron 2 with the cerium 4 ion in the sulfuric acid medium. The concentration of the analyte iron 2 plus during the titration can be calculated and it is customary in the redox titration to plot the potential of the ferrous ion system. This is the picture of titration of ferrous ion with the cerium 4 ion. Here in this picture the two galvanic cell is used for the titration, and when we added the cerium 4 ion solution, the ferrous ion converted into the ferric ion and then transferred to the another one cell, and the current is flow is shown by the voltmeter.
The potential of the redox system and the concentration of ferrous ion are related of course through the Nernst expression, that is E is equal to E standard of iron minus 0.059 log ferrous ion concentration divided by ferric ion concentration. The potential of the ferrous ferric system in the titration vessels could be measured at any point by making this vessel one half of a galvanic cell. The other half is the standard hydrogen electrode. An inert platinum electrode is used in the titration vessel to serve as an indicator electrode. It should be noted that as we perform the titration, we are placing the two redox systems in the same container and allowing them to reach equilibrium, that is Fe2 plus Ce4 plus is in equilibrium between the Fe3 plus cerium 3 plus. This means that the Fe2 plus and Fe3 plus and cerium 3 plus and cerium 4 plus redox system have the same potential throughout the titration and depicted by this equation. Hence, we can calculate the potential of the solution in the titration vessel from the Nernst expression for either redox system, and we shall choose the one which is more convenient for our purposes. Here in this graph shows the titration of iron with the cerium ion. The titration of tin second with the cerium 4 ion. Let us consider now an example where the reductant loses 2 electrons while the oxidant gains 1. Calculate the potential at the equivalence point in the titration of tin second ion with the cerium 4 ion. The potential is given by either of the following expression that is given here. Multiplying the first equation by the second and adding it to the second gives the resultant equation. The logarithmic term is 0 since at the equivalence point, and the final equation that we are getting here is the E is equal to 0.58 volt. For the case in which one redox system gains or loses 1 electrons and the other loses or gains 2, the potential of the equivalence point is E is equal to E naught I plus 2 E naught 2 divided by 3, where E1 naught is the standard potential of the first system and E naught 2 that of the second. It should be noted that the titration curve is not symmetrical about the equivalence point in this case as it is in the titration of iron 2 plus with the cerium 4 ion. This is always true when the two redox system exchange a different number of electrons per molecule. Now we discuss here about the redox indicators. The redox indicators are of several types which may be used in redox titration. A colored substance may act as its own indicator. For example, potassium permanganate solution are so deeply colored that a slight excess of this reagent in a titration can be easily detected. A specific indicator is a substance which reacts with a specific manner with one of the reagent in a titration to produce a color. Example are starch which forms a deep blue color with iodine and thiocyanate ion which forms a red color with plus ion. Here is the table which shows the list of some true redox indicators and their color and the transition potentials and the condition in which they are producing a color at the end point.
The third is the external or the spot test. Indicators were once employed when no internal indicator was available. The ferricyanide ion was used to detect iron 3 plus ions by formation of iron 2 plus ferricyanide, that is Thamble's blue, on a spot plate outside the titration vessel. The redox potential can be followed during a titration and the equivalence point detected from the large change in potential in the titration curve. Such a procedure is called the potentiometric titration, and the titration curve may be plotted manually or automatically recorded. Finally, an indicator which itself undergoes oxidation reduction may be employed. We shall refer to such a substance as a true redox indicator, and it is with such a reagent that the rest of our discussion is concerned. For simplicity, let us designate the redox couple as follows, that is, where one electron is gained by the oxidant and no hydrogen ions are involved in the reaction. The ion plus is color A containing a color A, gain the electron plus electron and convert into the ion, that is shows the color B.
Let us also say that the colors of the oxidized and reduced forms are different as indicated above. The equation for the potential of this system is where the EI naught is the standard potential of the indicator couple, that is E is equal to E naught I minus 0.059 log In concentration upon In plus concentration. And let us now assume that if the ratio of In concentration to ion concentration is 10 to 1 or greater, only color B can be seen by the eyes. If the ratio is 1:10 or smaller, only color A is observed, that is color B, that is E is equal to EI naught minus 0.059 log 10 by 1, that is also equal to E naught I minus 0.059, and the color A is indicated by the E is equal to E naught I minus 0.059 log 1 by 10 equal to E naught I plus 0.059. Subtracting these two equations, delta E is equal to plus minus 2 into 0.059, that is plus minus 0.12 volt. Thus, a change in potential of about 0.12 volt is required to bring about a change in color of the indicator if our assumptions are reasonable.
Now we discuss here about the selection of indicator. Obviously, an indicator should change color at or near the equivalence potential. If the titration is feasible, there will be a large change in potential at the equivalence point. This should be sufficient to bring about the change in color of the indicator. Now we discuss about the structural chemistry of redox indicator. Organic molecules that undergoes structural changes upon being oxidized or reduced. The structural changes which account for the different colors are known for the number of substances. The diphenylamine was one of the first redox indicators to be widely used in titrimetric analysis. Sodium salt of diphenylamine sulfonic acid is more commonly used.
The reduced form of this electrode is colorless. The oxidized form a deep violet. The mechanism of the color change has been shown to be as follows using diphenylamine as an example. The presence of a long conjugated system such as that in the diphenylbenzidine ion leads to absorption of light in the visible region and hence the ion is colored. Here is the diphenylamine that is colorless, and when it is reacted in the solution, then it is converted into the diphenylbenzidine, which is also colorless, and again it is converted into the diphenylbenzidine that is in violet color and generates 2 electrons. The indicator ferroin is the iron 2 plus ion complex of the organic compound 1,10-phenanthroline. Here the 1,10-phenanthroline react with the iron 2 plus and convert into the iron 2 1,10-phenanthroline, which shows the pink color at the end of the titration. Each of the 2 nitrogen atoms in 1,10-phenanthroline has an unshared pair of electrons that can be shared with iron 2 plus ion, and 3 such molecules of the organic compound attach themselves to a metallic ion to form a blood red complex ion. The iron 2 plus ion can be oxidized to iron 3 plus, and the latter ion also forms a complex with 3 molecules of 1,10-phenanthroline. The color of the iron 3 plus complex is light blue, and hence the sharp color change occurs when iron 2 plus is oxidized to iron 3 plus in the presence of 1,10-phenanthroline. Here is the equation that the light blue color phenyl 1,10-phenanthroline associated with ferric ion gain 1 electron and then convert into the 1,10-phenanthroline iron 2 plus that is in red color, dark red color, and the standard potential of this reaction is the 1.06 volt. The indicator is prepared by mixing equivalent quantities of iron 2 sulfate and 1,10-phenanthroline. The complex salt is called ferroin, and the complex salt of iron 3 plus ions is called the ferrine. Now we discuss here about the applications of oxidation reduction titration. First of all, we are discussing here about the oxidizing agent. Hydrogen peroxide is a good oxidizing agent with a large positive standard potential, that is H2O2 plus 2H plus 2 electron forms the 2H2O, and the standard potential is plus 1.77 volt. The peroxo disulfate ion is a powerful oxidizing agent in the acidic solution, that is H2O at 2 negative plus 2 electron forms the 2SO4 2 negative, and the standard potential is plus 2.01 volt. And AbO3 is again another powerful oxidizing agent. Now, the reducing agents. The sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide, both of these gases are relatively mild reducing agent. The reaction involving here is the SO4 2 negative plus 4H plus 2 electron convert into the H2SO3 plus H2O, and the standard potential is 0.17 volt. Similarly, the hydrogen sulfide is also reduced form and with the standard potential of plus 0.14 volt. Then the tin second chloride is used almost exclusively for the reduction of iron 3 plus to iron 2 plus. The number of metals can be used as reducing agents. Several metals, in particular silver, zinc, cadmium, aluminium, nickel, copper and mercury, have been widely used in analytical procedures. Potassium permanganate has been widely used as an oxidizing agent. The element cerium can exist in the solution in only two oxidation states, that is plus 4 and plus 3. In the quadrivalent state, it is a powerful oxidizing agent and undergoing a single reaction, that is Ce4 plus electron convert in Ce3 plus. Potassium dichromate is a fairly strong oxidizing agent, the standard potential of the reaction being plus 1.33 volt. That is, the reaction is Cr2O7 2 negative plus 14H plus 6 electron convert into the 2 Cr chromium 3 plus 7 H2O. The more important substances that are sufficiently strong reducing agents to be titrated directly with iodine are thiosulfate, arsenic third, antimony third, sulfide, sulfite, tin second and ferrocyanide. The reducing power of several of these substances depend upon the hydrogen ion concentration, and only by proper adjustment of pH can the reaction with iodine be made quantitative. The compound para-periodic acid H5IO6 is a powerful oxidizing agent which is extremely useful in performing selective oxidation of organic compounds with certain functional groups. The standard potential of the reaction is about plus 1.62 plus 1.7 volt. H5IO6 plus H plus 2 electron convert into the IO3 negative plus 3H2O. Potassium bromate is another one, a strong oxidizing agent, and the standard potential of the reaction being plus 1.44 volt. The reagent can be employed in two ways: as a direct oxidant for certain reducing agents and for the generation of known quantity of bromine. The reaction is depicted here. The chromium 2 ions is a powerful reducing agent, and the standard potential of this reaction being is minus 0.41 volt. The salts of titanium third are also a strong reducing agent, and the standard potential of the reaction being plus 0.04 volt. The reaction is also discussed here. So at the end of this module, we can conclude that the chemical reactions which involves in oxidation reduction are more widely used in titrimetric analysis than acid-base complex formation or the precipitation. There are different types of electrodes, indicators through which we can study the oxidation reduction behavior of the species. So this is the whole summary of this module. Thank you so much.